Hey, everybody. Welcome to the MOBB Mentality Podcast. This is a podcast made for moms of busy babies, and I have a special guest with me today. Her name is Mercedes Fernandez, and you are a geriatric kinesiologist. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Very excited to jump in today.
This is going to be a very interesting topic, and I feel like you're a very special type of guest that we haven't had on before. So this was actually when I read your bio and we were setting this up that really touched me, what you do. And I know you have a really big passion for spreading awareness and talking about taking care of older adults and how we don't always prepare and expect that to be something that we have to do. It's like, we know it's out there, but it's a hard topic to talk about. And I think this is even especially important for moms because we carry on so many different dual responsibilities and we wear so many hats. And I think when you become a mom, you also don't know if you could actually end up having to take care of a special needs child. So that's something that has directly impacted me. And then I also work with a lot of other moms that have ended up having to even take care of kids that are wheelchair bound or don't have a lot of mobility. So I'm excited that you're here today.
Thank you. And I you bring a great point up, and I'm really grateful and excited that you have created this beautiful platform to help educate and inform and spread information and helpful advice for other moms and future moms around the awareness of what it's like to take care of someone with a special need, a unique need, whether it's a child or an older adult. I myself have been in the adapted community for a few years, actually many years after, since I was in college. And before that, I grew up, my grandfather had a physical disability. He was blind in his left eye. And so for me, being in the adapted community, being in a unique environment, I never really I didn't differentiate it early on. And so I don't shy away from it, but other people who are not ever exposed to a child with special needs or, from autism to, like you said, wheelchair bound, a physical disability, a developmental disability, ready to start, I can imagine how overwhelming it is. And so I'm really excited to be here along with you, helping those in the future, perhaps, who might not know that they'll need the information.
Yes, for sure. You have a special story. So would you just mind sharing like what actually led you down this path to have such a caring heart for older adults and wanting to actually get into this field?
Of course. Goes very much back from birth. My grandfather on my mother's side and I were very close. My mother was very ill during her pregnancy with me. And so I basically, the story I was told and what my mama has relayed to me is that the doctor, because she was in high risk, it was going to be her or me. Fortunately, it was both of us. It was a form of sepsis. I don't remember the medical terminology of it, but as an infant, I think you really bring on all of that fear, all of that emotional energy. I'm not a mom myself yet, but I can only imagine what pregnancy in the term is like. And so my grandfather was essentially there. My dad and my mom had to keep working, and my mother was pretty much bedridden after I was born. So nursing was really difficult, and my grandfather was basically moved in with us to help raise me essentially and feed me. So I was really close, bonded with him.
Yeah.
The story and it's this physical memory of feeling him hold me. It was like a big gorilla. He had a belly, and so just a tiny little infant. I was really small, and really having that bond. So of course, as he got older, and along with my education, I just knew I wanted to be in fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had seen him age and never really, again, from the eyes of a child, you don't really see them as a different population, a different age. And so, I naturally kind of landed into working with older adults and kinesiology and wanting to make sure that they stayed mobile, because not only that, I saw my grandfather walk every day, 3 times a day. And so it was ingrained in me that movement was such a big part of his routine and his health. And he lived until he was 90, and dragging his oxygen tank pretty much until like a few days before he passed away, and was, it was his walking routine that he would not let go of.
That's so wonderful. So I found myself here a few years ago. Like, I'm very close with my grandparents as well, and I come from a Mexican background, so I feel like I like bonded to you naturally, in that way, and very close family. And my grandfather was super active all of my life, and here a few years ago, he ended up actually having to go through an amputation. And I found myself in a very similar situation of having to really step in, and he needed much more help than we had ever really had to give him because he was so independent. And so here we are, it's like having to step in as a family and to really be there to support him and his health. And at the time, I was a new mom as well. So I have this little baby, and then I have my grandfather that all of a sudden, needs all this extra support and help. And it's been a journey, like for me and my family and for us, of watching him lose that level of mobility and independence. And me being very health conscious, I'm always constantly, like wanting to push him on, like, these are the habits. We need to get you well. Like, I want him to have the best quality of life as possible. So, like, let's tie this in to our topic for today. And it's like, even this pain-free mobility, habits that may be hurting you. I think that is such a powerful statement, because as I feel like at any age of life, like, we want to make sure that we are mobile as long as possible and in the best shape as possible to have the highest quality of life.
Right.
So what do you feel like are some of the bad habits that people get into at whatever stage of life that leads them to be inactive or not have that mobility?
Yes, of course. And I say this for me because I'm also guilty of them. So I learn through my own practice as well, not because I am like a kinesiologist and I have all this experience and educational background, but as a human, like you said, I myself strive to stay in my own mobility, to have my optimal healthy lifestyle. And so I would say definitely the top one that comes to my mind is watching how we walk. So our walking habits really play into our posture. And I think that very often I see, first of all, the question to ask yourself is, how soft are your shoes? The trend is to wear more cushiony shoes, especially the orthotic industry likes to sell like spongy shoes. Those can be a little bit dangerous because, especially if you pronate, and for anyone who's watching, it's when your feet, you're arching in, you're putting a lot of stress on the inside of your kneecap. And so the sponginess is not also supporting. So you'll see that there's like the arch correction in the foot soles and all that jazz.
Yes.
And so while some can help, it really is just really being mindful of which way you're either inverting or you're everting. And then most of the time if the common tendency, because I do this myself as well, is we invert. So if you look down at your feet and where your arch is naturally supposed to be up and it's completely flat, you'll notice that you're almost like pivoting in. And so all of that biomechanically is changing the structure of our hips, which translates into our lower back. And so that is the realm of where strength training will come in, doing foot exercises to strengthen the bottom of the foot to get that natural arch back. Yeah, the beauty that I find with anatomy is it's also interconnected. And so one of the habits is that I see often is because of the foot is weak, we're wearing not supportive shoes. It's no one's fault. It's the shoe industry. Depending if an older adult has neuropathy, they're going to be, they can't feel, right? So that's very common with older adults, especially if there's diabetes involved. So there's all these complexities around. This is just one habit. So the second chain of command, I guess, that comes from that habit is that we then tend to drag our feet. So you'll see usually an older adult who is walking around, excuse me, getting through that little cough here.
We can both apologize for that if we get either of us. So it's okay.
Thank you. The tendency is then to drag our feet. So if you hear, and again, I even do this myself, so it takes a lot of conscious effort to pick our feet up off of the floor and touch, heel to the ball of the feet. And so those little habits all can translate into back pain, lower back pain.
Okay. Those are big. Like, as you're saying these things, I'm sure all of us are listening and be like, oh, yep, like people come to mind. Like I can pick apart like some myself. I do it at times. And then even like family, I'm like, hey, pick up your feet because you can hear them shooting behind you.
It's usually
Yes. So is there a certain, besides slowing down, is there certain things that we can do to make sure that we're even having better posture and form while we're walking?
Yes, I think so you make a good point. Slowing down is really the essence of where it all starts, because it all starts with awareness. So when we slow down and we think about, how am I walking? Are my feet, flopping in, or are they turning out? Am I standing on the edge of my feet? Another caveat on the side, you will learn a lot about your walking pattern if you just look at your shoes. So if you look at the sole of your shoes, one side is usually worn down than the other side. And that's a good indicator that will tell you either you're dragging on the inside of your foot or you're dragging more on your left foot. But back to the question is really just, I think slowing down, number one, and two, just being more conscious of making that extra effort. If you have pain, you have pain. And that's really going to highlight, something is not right, because we shouldn't be in pain. Our body is very intelligent and constantly sending us signals. And so if there's any shooting pain, sharp pain, any kind of pulling pain or sudden pain, that's an indicator that we have to do something to change our posture.
Do you notice any types of correlations between people that are walking more poorly than others that may tie into other types of, I know you mentioned even neuropathy, but like how does excess weight or certain, I guess like even as older adults, like certain knee replacements or hip replacements, like does that play a factor?
Absolutely. And it goes back to, again, the signals of pain, because we're not aware of the way that we're standing or we're walking, all of that energy, the weight that we're from sitting to standing to laying down to getting back up to walking, all of that weight is translating into our lower extremities. So not only are the ankles, we're bearing all that weight, but the knees suffer probably the most.
Okay.
And that's why you'll have a lot of knee replacements, especially with hips as well. Hips are, part of our back pain issue as well. And hips are more common in the elderly because our bones get brittle, and it just depends on how they're getting in and out of the shower, or, the flexibility and all that mobility that comes together. But yes, I think that bringing it all back together is every way that we move counts. So not being conscious will translate into these poor habits, I guess you can say, and then they lead to pain in different ways that they express itself.
So I want to get to some real like practical advice that you can give people. So what are some different mobility techniques, habits, stretches, like whatever it may be that we could actually do at home to improve our mobility?
Yes. So my first one is I'll start with the feet, because this
Excuse
is
me,
one
sorry.
that I think, no worries. This is one that I think that is, most overlooked, is you can grab a towel, or you can do it with a sock, or anything that is a little slippery. And this is you can ask a physical therapist as well. But you just sit on the couch on a chair, and the exercise is basically just, sliding the sock back and sliding it forward. So you're building, if this is it's an imaginary towel, and these are my toes. The concept is to slide and then push it back. So sliding the towel towards you and bringing a little bit of contraction, and then slowing it back down, so that we can build, again, it's to strengthen the arch of the foot. And I think I might have lost you, but I will wait.